Hey everyone, welcome to another E3 recap. Today we have Ubisoft's 2019 E3 conference. I am your host, Mike, and not with me today is Cody because he's out. He's got some personal things going on today. Definitely not a problem because we're going to keep on trucking through the recap of the conferences. So today, Ubisoft had their conference, and later we have the Square Enix conference. But overall, just kind of base level impressions. I thought Ubisoft's conference was fine. I didn't find it particularly encapsulating or really grabbing my attention towards anything. I feel like the pacing was pretty off on this conference compared to, some of the previous years. I think that, maybe the order of the games just wasn't quite what they wanted it to be or what it should have been. But I do think that they had some interesting announcements, so let's just crack right into it. So they started the conference with an Assassin's Creed Symphony and played through some music and themes from various Assassin's Creed games. However, this didn't lead to a new Assassin's Creed announcement. It just led to the announcement of the Symphony touring around in 2019, which is fine. I think that's an interesting concept. We live in an era where we have Zelda symphonies going on and Kingdom Hearts symphonies, and they just had a Final Fantasy symphony that I heard was not particularly great. But it seems like video games are starting to have more musical appreciation than in previous years, and I think it's kind of cool that they're doing an Assassin's Creed one. Although I don't know that anyone really fondly remembers specific Assassin's Creed themes other than maybe Ezio's theme or something like that. But our first real announcement was Watch Dogs Legion, which leaked ahead of time, but we finally got to see gameplay of it. And the rumor going around that you can recruit any NPC as a playable character is actually true. So they showed off 3 or 4 different characters being played, one dying, and that showed that there's permadeath in the game, which means that you kind of bounce around between these characters that you recruit, and characters that you recruit are going to be individually leveled. So that means that maybe you'll have a really high level recruit that you play as primarily, but you'll have some that are relatively close in level as secondary recruits. So I think that's interesting. The only thing they didn't really show too much is how these characters vary in gameplay styles. They did show that obviously every character is voice acted, which I thought was awesome. The voice acting budget on this game must be really high. I can't really fathom how they're going to make every single character have an individual voice, so I don't think that they're going to end up doing that. I think it'll end up being that they have, X amount of voice profiles, and they'll randomly assign specific voice profiles to random characters. So I don't know. We'll see. The game isn't coming out for a while. It comes out March 6th, 2020. So they showed that off. They had a couple trailers for that. And then they hard cut right into Rob McElhenney from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia coming on stage. And he came on and announced the new show he's working on for Apple's subscription service called Mythic Quest. It's a new show parodying game development, and they showed a clip of it. It looks pretty funny. It's him and some of the executive producers or executive directors or something from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So I'm sure that it'll have somewhat of a similar comical styling, but I definitely wouldn't go in expecting It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It looks to be a pretty different project for them. Although it's kind of interesting to see him pivot from working on that Minecraft movie into developing his own parody of game development. So I'll be interested to see if his experience with the Minecraft movie impacts that in any way. So we're just going to keep jumping through it. This is going to be kind of a shorter video compared to our other analyses, if you will. Next up, they showed off that there's a new season of Rainbow Six Siege starting June 11th. And then they jumped right into a new Brawlhalla announcement. They're doing a crossover with Adventure Time. Brawlhalla, if you don't know, it's a 3-player game. So, you have your teams of 3 versing off against each other. For Adventure Time characters, they're going to have Jake and Finn, of course. And then the third character will be Princess Bubblegum. So they talked about that just very briefly, and then they bounced right into Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which they showed a new cinematic trailer for. John Bernthal looking really great in that game, and he came out on stage. I didn't expect him to sound the way he sounds because in most games, in most programs that he's in, he kind of talks like this. This is his voice when he's talking to people, but he talks more like this when he's talking in public. So he's got he doesn't sound as rough around the edges as the characters he portrays, but he brought out his gorgeous dog on stage and spoke a little bit about Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Of course, after he left stage, they talked a little bit more about some program called Ghost Recon Delta Company that's going to have some form of early access, and they did announce that a beta for Ghost Recon Breakpoint will be coming September 5th. And then last but not least, as far as Breakpoint announcements, they did really quickly reveal a Terminator download content for the game, which it's funny that we're seeing Terminator really pop up in all these different ways in this conference or in these conferences already. The marketing budget for that movie must be really crazy that they're trying to really appeal to the gaming crowd. So hopefully that turns out cool. That game looks really good. They revealed a new mobile RPG featuring characters from various Tom Clancy games. So it looks like a sort of like a top-down shooter kind of game, like isometric camera angle type thing. But it features, obviously operators from Rainbow Six Siege. It features characters from Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands, an operator from The Division, and so on and so forth. So it looks like it's really going to be tying to... Oh, and it has Sam Fisher from Splinter Cell. And that ended up being the only Splinter Cell announcement of the conference. So I'm sorry to you Splinter Cell fans. You're going to be waiting a little bit longer, I guess, for that. So then we crack into Just Dance, a hard pivot from these, cooperative online shooters, straight into a monologue about it being the 10th anniversary for Just Dance. And there was a dancing bear on stage. This wasn't in the first 10 minutes like I expected. That's why I think the pacing was all sorts of off on this show. I really think that, for Just Dance, they had their normal, hype the crowd up, bring dancers out, play some songs, announce the game. And of course, as time goes by, the world turns. We have a new Just Dance game, Just Dance 2020. It's coming to Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One. It's still coming to the Nintendo Wii, not the Wii U, but the Nintendo Wii from 2006. And it's also going to be coming to Google Stadia, which isn't much of a surprise. They sort of announced that already at the Stadia Connect. But, another year, another Just Dance. They played that High Hopes song by Panic at the Disco. Gonna be honest, not my favorite song. It's fine. But they had a couple others. And, it was kind of a nice, fun bop. But I felt like putting it smack dab in the middle of the conference was a little weird and maybe a little tone deaf when people praised them for having it just front loading the conference, in previous years. So, moving along, they jumped into For Honor really briefly, and they revealed a sort of a gameplay trailer. I guess it was more of a cinematic trailer for a new in-game event. It's a timed event. It's called Shadows of the Hitokiri. So it has some Japanese influence, and it looks like there's ghosts possessing different characters. So we'll see what that entails, but that's starting pretty soon, I believe. So, yeah, they talked about that. And then after For Honor, we had the reveal of Rainbow Six Quarantine coming early 2020. It's a 3-player co-op game where you fight against parasitic enemies. I couldn't tell if it was a new mode for Rainbow Six Siege or a new standalone game. The way they kind of spoke about it during the conference led me to believe that maybe it was a new standalone game, although I'm sure we'll see some sort of confirmation really, really soon about that. But that's coming pretty soon. So they've got a lot going on as far as their competitive shooter scene in the coming months and into early 2020. It seems like they've really got support ramped up for those still. So then they moved into Division 2. Division 2 is going to be having a free trial from June 13th through June 16th. with new content, episode 1, named and announced to be coming out in July. It looks like with these episodes, they're going to be stepping out of their normal boundaries of play, and they're going to be introducing us to new areas and new missions. With episode 1 taking you into the National Zoo. It takes you into a zoo, but also into like more of a forest environment as well. And that comes out in July. And then they also announced that episode 2 will feature the Pentagon. It'll be coming out later this year, alongside a new raid. The second raid will be dropping in the fall. And then they wrapped up Division 2 content by teasing the third episode of Year 1 content. It's going to be a manhunt taking you back to New York, possibly. It shows you right on the outskirts of New York City, and it's apparently you're going to be going up against some sort of operator that, or at least like a prior Division operator, which is interesting. And they end capped Division content by announcing that Division movie that's been in development for seemingly quite some time. It's been announced for a while. And it's had Jake Gyllenhaal attached for a while. It's going to star Jake Gyllenhaal and Jessica Chastain, and it's going to be developed for Netflix. So I think that's pretty interesting. I think that they could definitely do a Division movie well. It just depends on how they approach it. Because, video game movies are kind of hit or miss as far as the quality. Not necessarily the quality of the production, but more the quality of the script. And, so we'll see. In more recent years, we've had slightly more faithful adaptations of video games with a new Tomb Raider featuring Alicia Vikander, and then Detective Pikachu coming out more recently. That one probably doing the best of video game movies announced. So moving out of Division 2, they rolled into discussing a Ubisoft subscription service. It's not called Ubisoft Pass, like what had been rumored and possibly leaked ahead of time. It's called Uplay Plus, and it includes early access to games, including premium editions of games, and that'll include games such as the new Ghost Recon Breakpoint game, and then I would assume all of the other new announcements that they've had today, including a couple more that we're going to move into and roll into soon. But I would also anticipate that includes Just Dance 2020, and then of course it does include tons of past games, including Beyond Good and Evil they showed, prior Assassin's Creed games, prior Prince of Persia games. So it looks like they're really going to roll in a lot of their back catalog. That being said, the price is definitely the highest price that has been revealed for a subscription service so far this E3. It is $14.99 a month. That being said, you will be able to play it on Google Stadia next year. So that means for those who have the free Google Stadia subscription and they're fine with playing 1080p, that you'll just be paying $14.99 a month to access basically every Ubisoft game in their library. Anywhere you want. So whether that's on your phone or on a tablet, on your computer in the airport, or even on your Google Chromecast Ultra or Chromecast-enabled device, you will be able to access Uplay Plus and stream in and access your save game data and your Ubisoft game content via that service. Moving along, after Uplay Plus, a new game was announced. It had been announced prior, actually. But it's formally been debuted now. It's called Roller Champions. It looks to be a multiplayer competitive, a sort of like a Rocket League type game, where it's roller derby and you've got a ball that you're passing between your teammates and keeping away from the opposing team, and you're trying to score goals. I was thinking Quidditch the whole time because you're throwing the ball through a hoop as you're rolling past. But no, it looks really interesting. They announced that it's going to have an early alpha that's accessible via Uplay. They didn't put a final date on it. I don't know if they have announced a final date for that game yet, but regardless, that game is coming. I would assume soon. If I had to guess, I would say early next year, probably like January. There seems to be a lot of announcements of alphas this year without hard release dates for the final version of games, so I guess we'll find out later, but we certainly didn't find out today. Finally, we had Yves Guillemot, the president of Ubisoft. He came on stage. Finally, this was the first time he actually came on stage for this conference, and he kind of spoke really quickly about appreciating Ubisoft fans and developers for their support, and then introduced a new guy coming on stage. I didn't take down his name, but he is the director of a new project at one of Ubisoft's studios called Gods and Monsters. Now, this game is actually the splash screen for this episode. It looks sort of like a Zelda Breath of the Wild type game where you have like a lush open world that's very stylized around like a almost like a cell shaded but definitely a cartoony aesthetic. It definitely art wise looks like Breath of the Wild. But you play as this character. He's got this white tunic, some light armor on, and then a small sword. And it looks like you're going to be defending the gods and helping them out as monsters try to rule the realm. And it's coming pretty soon. This is the first announcement for this game. This is a new IP, of course, and it's coming February 25th, 2020. Now, whether it holds that date or not, I suppose we'll see. But they just revealed a cinematic trailer, no gameplay, and I think that kind of speaks volumes for this game. I think that they're really going to try to build up the hype of this new open world adventure. It is from the creators of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So knowing how Assassin's Creed Odyssey's open world traversal works, and even like previous Ubisoft games, I think that we're in for a pretty interesting ride with this game. Now, whether it nails that date or not, I guess we'll see. But that was quite literally the end of their conference. That's how they ended. They didn't even cut back to the audience or anything like that. They cut straight to post-conference. So that was the Ubisoft conference. Altogether, I think it was fine. I do think that, maybe they should have rearranged their conference a little bit because, they seem to have a lot of really good announcements for existing content. It's the new content that is kind of hit or miss. Watch Dogs Legion looking great, a little bit further off than I would like. Honestly thought that was going to be a holiday game, but glad that it's coming out and glad that the gameplay looks really engaging. It seems like that game finally has an identity. Obviously new content for existing games like Division 2, Rainbow Six Siege, which had new content announced as well. Those games are getting the support they need, and Ubisoft has done a good job at bringing these games as a service, consistent content for their players, and really keeping their player base on and supported. So I think that they've got a really good thing going, and to have access to all of these games via Uplay Plus, that's really good. I don't know if $14.99 a month is the right price. They announced that it will have 100 plus games at launch, which is pretty good considering that it's going to have a lot of legacy titles. But I hope that they really keep up with that service and really keep up. They said that all of their games are going to be available day one via Uplay Plus. So we'll see. But I want to know what you thought of the Uplay conference. Be sure to let me know in the comments below. And then, of course, if you want to continue following our E3 coverage and then any other coverage going out, be sure to click subscribe and click the bell icon to know when there's going to be new content. Other than that, my name's Mike, and I will see you for the Square Enix recap. Thank you very much, and have a good one.